Hi, I'm Shannon Bennett from Culinary Wonderland, and today I'm going to show you how to cook Apple Tarte Tatin. First step we're going to do is actually the spices. For me, they're the secret ingredient in this any tarte tatin you do, which is basically an upside down caramelized fruit tart. I prefer apples and pears because they keep their shape really well and they're quite common. You can find them in any supermarket or farmer's market. So, first step though, we've got to grind up our spices. A few juniper berries, some star anise, which really does give some great aromatic characteristics to this and goes so well with fruit. Some cardamom pods, a little bit of saffron, which does have a unique flavour that really does blend well with these spices. Some white pepper, a good pinch of sea salt, and we've got some cinnamon and a few cloves. I've got the luxury of having a pretty cool little spice blender that I want this blended up to quite a fine powder. No bits of cinnamon there at all. We don't want anything that's going to be gritty in this particular recipe. Oh, look at that. Amazing. Smell of that's incredible. Okay, so obviously with my recipes, there's got to be some butter somewhere, and we've got a fair bit here, around about 180 grams of butter. And then around about just under a cup of sugar, about 220, but I do it by eye. There's slightly less butter, more sugar, and we're going to make a caramel in the pan. So with the butter, I like to just slice it or chop it if it's room temperature, and then ensure that it's basically just pressed down into the bottom of the pan. So it's nice and even, and it starts off its cooking process nice and even. So we don't get any spots anywhere on the actual tart that are more cooked than others. At this stage, if you've got puff pastry in the freezer, take it out and it defrosts quite quickly, but we want it nice and cold, but not frozen. Next step, a vanilla bean. Now, a lot of you might not have used a vanilla bean before, but very simple to extract that flavour from it by just splitting it. Now carefully with a very sharp knife, small little utility knife, just run the knife down the vanilla bean and split it. Then what we do is just use the knife itself on the inside of the bean to scrape out all that goodness. That'll distribute as the caramel goes and starts to caramelise. Scrape it out again, scrape it onto there. Then there's obviously a lot more vanilla seeds inside this pod, so I use that part decorative as well and put across into the sugar. Next step is the fruit. If you've got some apples, we've got some Golden Delicious here, but if you want to use, I like Packham pears, which work quite a firm fruit is what you need. So peel them, cut them in half, and then we're going to scoop out any seeds. Obviously, if you've got the luxury of an apple corer, fantastic. You can use that before you split them in half. So at this stage, I'll use a little small knife to just get into this apple and get the seeds out. That should do it. And then what we want to do is the round side of the apple down into the sugar. And see how I'm just putting them out in a fanned fashion. There's definitely one thing though, I always use Golden Delicious apples for all cooking, particularly desserts. Granny Smith are popular with a lot of people. I find that they puree up. They get to a certain point where they just collapse, where Golden Delicious won't. Okay, puff pastry, I'm using Carême here, which is a quality puff pastry, already pre-rolled. It makes it so easy and so convenient. What we're going to do is just fold in. I don't cut around out. What I do is I love those little corners and the way that they go really crispy with all the caramel cooking and then baked in the oven. So I just tuck them under. under the fruit. Okay, pretty well much everything is tucked under there. And this is as basic and as simple dessert that you can get, in my opinion, you can make. Now we're using an induction stove here. We're going to be turning this on, probably start at a high heat and then work your way down. Next step, as it's starting to build up the caramel underneath, what I want is to actually start putting slices or inserts with your little small knife into the puff pastry, exposing the fruit. I know it seems weird, it's like, hang on a minute, I'm ruining this beautiful puff pastry. Well, no, you're not, trust me, but you need the caramel to come up like a volcano and cover all of this puff pastry. Then that'll caramelize beautifully and you're gonna get this incredible, crispy, golden result. Okay, this is coming along really nicely now. Caramel's formed beautifully. You've just got to be careful to make sure that you move the pan around a bit, because no matter what, how good your technology is, there's always going to be a couple of hot spots and cold spots on your stove. So obviously it's like a musical instrument. Just keep moving it around a bit and just keep playing it and making sure that the caramel's nice and even, no burn, just nice and golden. And then make sure, carefully, without burning yourself, is just napping this caramel over the top of the pastry. Once you're satisfied that the fruit underneath is going to have some colour in it and that it's probably halfway cooked, we need to now cook the puff pastry. Straight into an oven at 180 for around 20 minutes. This beauty has been in for around about 18 minutes. I checked it after around 15, and obviously the oven has got a couple of little weak spots in it where temperature's higher. So turning it is advisable. Check it halfway through just to make sure that it's cooking evenly. What I like to do now, I actually make, if I'm doing a dinner party, I actually make this in the morning and I leave it out on the stove to rest and nearly cure, where a lot of the caramel actually is soaked up by the fruit and the flavour just gets better and better. But if you're going to be serving it from the oven straight to guests, just leave it for another minute or two to settle down a bit, and obviously for the pan to be able to touch it. Still warm, but not obviously boiling. So there you have it, my classic apple tarte tatin. If you're going to replace the fruit, particularly apples, with something like a bit more delicate, like say for instance mangoes, which is one of my favourites as well, served with coconut ice cream, can't beat it. Make the caramel first in the exact same method that I did, then add the fruit in, then the pastry over the top. Yes, it can be a little bit tricky, but you can use obviously a wooden spoon to tuck the puff pastry underneath the fruit. But use your imagination, you can adapt this, you could add a little bit of thyme if you like. Lemon thyme is always delicious with tarte tatins. I hope you enjoy it. I love this recipe. I cook this recipe a lot for friends and family, and it means a lot to me, so enjoy.